We don't just make cars, we create cars.
10's Late News with Sandra Sully.
Tonight, digging in, the Governor-General puts his side of the child sex cover-up scandal. Children overboard bombshell, damning new evidence against the former Defence Minister. And Australia's Alyssa Camplin, still coming to terms with her Olympic gold. Good evening. First tonight, the Governor-General has broken his silence over allegations that he covered up claims of sexual abuse. In a written statement tonight, Dr. Hollingworth says he has examined his conscience, admits he has made mistakes, but he will not be resigning.
After 2 days of frantically compiling a case for his defence, the Governor-General finally issued a statement tonight designed to save his name and his job. His principal defence: sexual abuse of children is totally abhorrent to me. It can never be condoned or excused. But he acknowledged that he may have made mistakes which he blames on the system and the times. He says, "I acknowledge that the Church has not kept pace with community expectations and demands for greater transparency and accountability in dealing with these problems." In the 10-page statement, he seeks to rebut every allegation against him, including the claim that he was too lenient in the case where a priest had sex with a young girl. Dr. Hollingworth said, "I have never condoned it, regardless of whether or not the girl was a willing participant." The measure of the success of this statement will be whether it persuades the public, the opposition, and most importantly, the Prime Minister, that Dr. Hollingworth is fit to remain in the highest office in the land. Among the concessions in the statement, an admission that in retrospect some of the decisions he made may have been different, and he expressed regret for those judgments he may have got wrong. Greg Turnbull, 10 News.
There's damning new evidence tonight on the children overboard affair. Defence officials have revealed they told former Defence Minister Peter Reith 3 days before the federal election that there was no evidence children had been thrown into the sea.
The mystery of who said what and when just won't go away for the Howard government. A key defence official has dropped the latest bombshell, telling a Senate committee hearing he personally phoned Mr Reith on November 7 to tell him of doubts over the claims.
Fundamentally, there was nothing to suggest that women and children had been thrown into the water.
Air Marshal Houston was acting Defence Force head at the time.
There was silence for quite a while. It seemed to me that he was stunned, surprised, and essentially said, well, I think we'll have to look at releasing the video.
That conversation was 3 days before the election. The following day, the Prime Minister repeated the child overboard claims.
My understanding is there has been absolutely no alteration to the original advice that was given. And I checked that as recently as last night.
And who did he check with? The former Defence Minister, Peter Reith. The statements now put pressure on Mr Reith to explain why he believes the original story was more credible. Another senior defence official, Brigadier Gary Bornholt, heard the conversation with Mr Reith on speakerphone. But Mr Reith could be off the hook. The Defence Force Chief is still backing the original claims, despite findings to the contrary by his own senior colleagues.
Recalling that there was a very positive report made on the 7th of October, I do not accept that finding.
Leonie Mellor, 10 News.
A new strategy to release accused Australian terrorist David Hicks. Lawyers in the US say his indefinite detention at Camp X-Ray is unconstitutional and that he should be brought home.
Repeatedly refused even basic contact with his son, Terry Hicks has had enough. Today venting frustration not at the US but the Australian government.
And I think they've almost hung him, haven't they?
26-year-old David Hicks is among 300 alleged terrorist fighters imprisoned indefinitely and without charge at Camp X-Ray, oblivious to the fresh legal effort to set him free.
It is pure and unconstrained executive detention forever, and that's something the United States simply can't do.
In a bold move, a team of US lawyers today sued both the Bush administration and the US military for unconstitutional actions. Their legal argument lodged today claims that the detained men, including Hicks, are not terrorists, and it singles out the US president, saying he has no right to lock the men up simply because he doesn't like what they believe in. The special treatment for accused American al-Qaeda fighter John Walker Lind set the precedent for this latest legal suit. Hicks's team argue that the court time and lawyers allowed for the American should be extended to every prisoner, along with better treatment and rights.
They're in isolation in an exposed area in a wire cage and being interrogated by experts from the US military.
In the single letter allowed from Cuba, David Hicks told his family he was embarrassed and sorry for the trouble he's caused, but his father just wants him home. In the United States, Deborah Knight, 10 News.
Dramatic pictures tonight of a life and death struggle near Sydney. A teenager trapped for more than 2 hours in water under a rock ledge. The Westpac helicopter chopper lowered rescuers dozens of metres into a deep gorge to get to the 16-year-old. The high school student was trapped up to his neck after falling off an air mattress and being sucked into a whirlpool. Fellow students had to hold his head above water as divers tried to free him. Finally, he was airlifted to hospital with a dislocated hip and hypothermia. A dislike of backpackers has been blamed for the Childers Hostel Inferno in Queensland. A murder trial underway in Brisbane has been told the man accused of starting the tragic fire wanted to drive tourists out of town.
The Crown opened its case against Robert Paul Long, vowing not to play up the horror of the tragedy, but rather provide the jury with